Hello and welcome, I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching NewsX World. Let's first take a look at our top stories. White House officials have said that Donald Trump isn't thinking about speaking with billionaire Elon Musk after stating the former political ally had lost his mind as their feud continues. Trump says a review of Musk's government contracts, which could impact the US space program, will be taken out. At least 5 people have died, while others have been injured after Russian strikes on Kharkiv and Kherson, according to local officials. Meanwhile, President Trump says he still hasn't decided on a Russian sanctions bill yet, amid calls from Western leaders to put pressure on Vladimir Putin. Donald Trump says that fresh trade talks with China will take place in London next week as the president signals that Chinese leader Xi Jinping has agreed to restart the flow of rare earth minerals. Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says the nation is recalibrating its relationship with China. The Israeli army says that 10,000 further soldiers are needed, including 6,000 combat troops, as it announces the death of 4 soldiers in Gaza. Meanwhile, local health authorities say 38 people died in Israeli attacks on the enclave yesterday. US President Donald Trump has warned Iran, saying there is going to be no enrichment as both nations look towards striking a nuclear deal. Meanwhile, Iran says that a US travel ban shows deep hostility for Iranians and Muslims amid ongoing nuclear talks with the United States. Israel has warned that it will continue striking sites in Lebanon if Hezbollah is not disarmed. This comes after significant attacks in southern Beirut, where underground drone factories were reportedly targeted despite a ceasefire being in place since November last year. Five members from the far-right group Proud Boys have filed a $100 million lawsuit against the US government. They claim their rights were violated after convictions following the Capitol riots of 2021, citing insufficient probable cause and alleging fake evidence was found. Riot police have clashed with protesters in Los Angeles after a day of federal immigration raids in which dozens of people were reportedly taken into custody. Demonstrators were seen defacing buildings and hurling concrete as law enforcement used tear gas and pepper spray. We start this hour in North America. A showdown between 2 powerful figures, Donald Trump and Elon Musk, is now threatening America's space program. The US president has hinted he may cut off billions in federal contracts to Musk's companies, including SpaceX and Starlink. This comes after Musk publicly blasted Trump's spending bill, calling it abomination. Trump hit back, calling Musk crazy, and scrapped a planned coup. Speaking aboard Air Force One, Trump said he'd look at everything and would act only if it's fair to both Musk and the country. Musk, who once served under Trump, has fired back, even threatening to ground NASA-linked launches. This could push the US to rely on Russia again for space access. NASA is now looking to Boeing's Starliner, already plagued with delays, while the Artemis moon program faces uncertainty. The fallout has hit Wall Street too. Tesla lost over $100 billion in value. And while Trump says he's not thinking about Elon, the escalating feud may have global implications. Let's have a listen.
President, you posted yesterday that they were to save money, to cancel some of Musk's contracts. How seriously are you considering that?
Oh, we'll take a look at everything. I think at everything. It's a lot of money. There's a lot of subsidy. So we'll take a look at that. Only if it's fair. Only if it's fair for him and for the country. I would certainly think about a deal, but it has to be fair.
Working on China, working on Russia, working on Iran, working on so many. I'm not thinking about it.
What are your plans to contact?
I hope he does well with us.
Do you have any plans to speak with Mr. Musk? This was one of your closest advisors.
No, I don't have any plans. Somebody.
Moving on now, US President Donald Trump says he has not yet decided whether to impose new sanctions on Russia, currently under consideration in the US Senate. The proposed bill would impose stiff sanctions on Russia and secondary sanctions on countries that trade with Russia over its war in Ukraine. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One, Trump said he would enforce the measures if he believes they are necessary. Here is what the president had to say.
You know the bill. I studied the bill. We're to see. And if I think Russia will not be making a deal, stopping the bloodshed, 5 and 6 even. I've been saying 5 and 6, and now it's more. 1,000 a week soldiers being killed and people being killed. Not just soldiers, people being killed, but largely soldiers being killed. I use it if it's necessary, and they've really given me that option.
Meanwhile, Russian strikes on the Ukrainian cities of Kherson and Kharkiv have killed at least 5 people. According to Regional Governor Alexander Prokudin, a strike on a high-rise building in Kherson killed a couple, while in Kharkiv another 3 people were killed and at least 17 wounded in what Mayor Igor Terekov called the most powerful attack on his city since the start of the war. In recent weeks, Russian troops have reportedly accelerated their advance, while the latest negotiations in Istanbul failed to broker an end to the 3-year war. This comes after Russia launched an intense missile and drone barrage at the Ukrainian capital Kyiv on Friday, killing at least 6 people and wounding at least 80 others. The attacks followed a warning from Russian President Vladimir Putin, conveyed via US President Donald Trump, that the Kremlin would hit back after Ukrainian drones destroyed several strategic bomber aircraft in attacks deep inside Russia. Well, several developments in recent hours. Joining us to discuss them, Gautam Mukherjee, a senior journalist. Gautam, as always, thank you ever so much for joining us on the programme. Let's first look at Trump's statements over sanctions on Russia. There has been pressure from world leaders for America to do so, the EU imposing several sanctions in recent weeks and months. Why do you think Trump is currently stalling on taking that next step of action?
Well, Trump is not interested in a ceasefire for a ceasefire's sake. He has put a lot of Russians into the war. Many have died. He has lost a lot of equipment. He has spent 3 years fighting this war, and he intends to leave with gains. So part of that is territory, which up to now Ukraine has not said very much about. And the attacks that are happening deep inside Russia seem to have the backing of the United States and the NATO countries. And this is dangerous for in terms of what Russia might do to retaliate. As far as sanctions go, to try and make Russia stop the war, they are not going to be effective. As far as whether they will, cramp Russian style in terms of its economy, that remains to be seen. Mostly sanctions everywhere have been bypassed. They've been bypassed by Iran, they've been bypassed by Russia in the past, and there is no reason why they won't do so. As far as sanctioning countries that deal with Russia, for example, India buys 39% of its oil from Russia. I don't think they are going to stop either. And India is also contemplating buying various armaments from Russia, including those which are in the pipeline and yet to be delivered. All this will not stop. So how effective sanctions might be is anybody's guess.
Yes, Gautam, let's now move to further strikes and military action that we've seen following that deep drone assault, Operation Spider's Web, that you've already alluded to. Of course, Vladimir Putin spoke with Donald Trump, the US president revealing that the Russian president said that he would be forced to respond. We've seen these strikes overnight in Kharkiv, which are reportedly the largest strike since the start of the war. Also deaths reported in Kherson. This a day after on Friday, huge strikes across Ukraine, also targeting the capital Kyiv. Do you think this is the start of Russian responses to those drone attacks, or do you think there could be further widespread strikes across Ukraine in retaliation to Operation Spider's Web?
Well, Ukraine has quite an effective air shield, which is preventing Russian bombers from entering Ukrainian airspace. As far as drones and missiles that have got through, they are a fraction of what was thrown at Ukraine. So either Russia takes it, up the escalation ladder and starts using hypersonic missiles in the main, including ones which are too fast for the air defenses to stop. This is not going to result in very much damage in Ukraine. Last night, 30 missiles and 400 drones really haven't done very much to Ukraine. And so more of the same will not achieve any proper objective in terms of retaliating for the damage done to the Russian planes and submarines. So they have to take it a jot higher if they are, likely to achieve their ambition of, doing serious damage to Ukraine. Whether they will do so or not remains to be seen, because going up the escalation ladder could result in going up the escalation ladder for Ukraine as well. Of course, Ukraine has achieved its objectives very spectacularly in Spiderweb, using very low-tech drones and ordinary explosives. So they haven't used high-tech weaponry like Russia may be forced to do. But if Russia does use this high-tech weaponry, then they can expect escalation on the Ukrainian side as well.
Yes, and Gautam, to bring an end to our conversation, you talk about the escalation ladder there. We have, of course, aside from Operation Spider's Web, seen significant Ukrainian strikes in Russia. This, of course, also in the moment where direct talks are taking place. We've had 2 rounds of direct discussions in Istanbul. How detrimental could these continuing escalating strikes be for the wider peace effort and the wider geopolitical stability?
Well, I think it's already derailed the talks. And as long as, this kind of intensive warfare from both sides continues, the talks are meaningless. Putin has already said, I don't care about the talks. And as far as Zelensky making his demands, stop this, 30 days, 60 days, I don't think he's connecting with the Russians. The Russians are ignoring all that and will continue to ignore it as long as the fighting is in effect intensified. As you know, Ukraine has struck the bridge going to Crimea. It has struck several other bridges in Russian-held territories. What Ukraine is trying to do is difficult to ascertain if they're trying to achieve peace with Russia, because the kind of attacks that Ukraine has successfully pulled off have shown months and years of planning, and they don't seem to be pulling back. And Russians are renowned for going the distance, no matter how much the punishment to their troops and equipment is in the meantime.
Gautam Mukherjee, thank you ever so much for providing that insight. We will, of course, continue to bring you all of the developments from the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. But we move on now, and tensions between the world's two biggest economies may be easing, at least for now. US President Donald Trump says a fresh round of trade talks with China will be held in London next week. This comes right after Trump's rare phone call with Chinese President Xi Jinping, a move aimed at defusing a long-running tariff war. The president announced the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and US Trade Representative Jameson Greer will lead the US team in Monday's talks. This will be the second round of talks since both countries imposed sweeping tariffs, with US duties on some Chinese goods once hitting 145%. After temporary relief last month, tensions flared again, with Trump accusing China of backtracking on a deal. But in a major development, Trump says Xi has now agreed to allow rare earth minerals and magnets to flow to the US, a crucial point in the standoff. While both sides talk of progress, a final resolution remains uncertain. Let's have a listen in.
No, we're very far advanced on the China deal. We wanted clarification. We had to have clarification. There's a bumpy up here, but we had to have clarification. And that's what we're really having to be about. We had a very good talk. I talked to President Xi for, I guess, more than 2 hours. We had a very good talk. It's a complicated deal, but it's a deal that's, bring us a lot of money and a lot of everything else. And we get along very well with President Xi and with China.
Well, sticking with China relations, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says Ottawa is taking a first step towards rebuilding ties with China. Speaking on Friday, Carney said his phone call with Chinese Premier Li Qiang marked the start of a process to recalibrate the relationship. Ties between Ottawa and Beijing have been strained for years, and trade talks have been a key point of tension. Carney said China is Canada's second largest trading partner, but farmers and fishers across the country have been hit hard by Chinese tariffs. He also raised the issue of fentanyl smuggling, saying it's a major concern for Canadians. The two sides have now agreed to launch ministerial-level talks on trade and other disputes. Let's listen to those comments from Mark Carney.
This is the start of a process of recalibrating the relationship with China. It's very important that we reopen dialogue with Chinese authorities for several reasons, but I'll focus on a few. They are our second largest trading partner, the second largest trading partner for Canada. We have a number of trade disputes with China. Farmers across this country, fishers across this country are being affected by Chinese tariffs. People across this country have been affected by fentanyl and its precursors. Those are issues I raised directly, and we spoke at length about our concerns there, and have initiated processes, including ministerial level dialogue on trade and other issues. So there are important issues with China that we need to address.
Moving to the Middle East now, Israel's military has confirmed the deaths of 4 soldiers in Gaza as the country continues its intensified offensive in the enclave. Military spokesman Brigadier General Efi Defrin said that the soldiers were killed while operating in a Hamas-owned compound in the Khan Yunis area. According to Defrin, an explosive device detonated around 6 a.m. local time, causing part of the structure to collapse. 5 other soldiers were injured in the blast. 1 is in a serious condition. Here is what he said.
לא הבוקר 4 לוחמים. סמל ראשון יואב רבר מיחידת יעלם, רב סמל מתקדם במילואים חן גרוס מיחידת מגלן, ושני לוחמים נוספים ששמם טרם הותר לפרסום. ההודעה נמסרה לכלל המשפחות. יהי זכרם ברוך. בנוסף, נפצעו 5 לוחמים. לוחם אחד באורח קשה ו4 לוחמים באורח בינוני. הכוח פעל במרחב ח'אן יונס, במתחם של ארגון הטרור חמאס. בסביבות השעה 6 בבוקר, אירע פיצוץ מטען שגרם לקריסת חלק מהמבנה. זהו ערב קשה. אנחנו משתתפים בצער המשפחות, מחבקים אותן וממשיכים ללוות אותן.
Meanwhile, Israel's army also revealed that it is facing a shortage of over 10,000 soldiers, including approximately 6,000 combat troops. General Defrin stressed that this is a genuine operational need and that the military is taking all necessary steps to address the gap, including moves to conscript ultra-Orthodox Jews into the army. Meanwhile, Gaza's Civil Defense Agency reports that 38 people were killed in Israeli attacks across the territory on Friday. Among the dead were 11 people killed in a single strike on Jabalia in northern Gaza, according to local officials. Staying in the region, tensions are escalating on the Israel-Lebanon border after Israel's defense minister warned that there will be no calm in Beirut unless Hezbollah is disarmed. This comes after the largest Israeli airstrike on Beirut since last year's ceasefire. Israeli jets targeted Beirut's southern suburbs, a Hezbollah stronghold, destroying at least 9 buildings. Israel claims the strikes hit drone factories, a claim Hezbollah denies. Lebanon's president called the strikes a flagrant violation of the ceasefire and urged the US and France to intervene. The Lebanese army says ongoing Israeli attacks are undermining its role in enforcing the truce and warned that cooperation on monitoring Hezbollah could be suspended if strikes continue. Once again, staying in the Middle East, Iran has condemned US President Donald Trump's recent travel ban, describing it as a display of deep hostility towards Iranians and Muslims. The ban, which bars citizens from 12 countries, including Iran, is set to take effect on Monday. Iranian officials called the move a violation of international law and an act rooted in discrimination based on religion and nationality. Meanwhile, tensions between the US and Iran are also escalating over Tehran's nuclear program. Speaking aboard Air Force One, President Trump issued a stark warning regarding Iran's uranium enrichment. Let's listen to what he said.
Well, they won't be enriching. If they enrich, then we're going to have to do it the other way, and I don't really want to do it the other way, but we're going to have to.
What's your latest?
There's not going to be enrichment.
Well, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei rejected any halt to uranium enrichment, calling it against Iran's interests. Diplomacy continues, with Oman mediating a new US nuclear proposal as talks involve Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and US envoy Steve Witkoff. The next days will determine if diplomacy can prevail or the standoff will escalate. Heading back over to North America, Salvadoran migrant Kilmar Abrego Garcia, wrongfully deported from the United States 3 months ago, has been returned to the US and arrested on human smuggling charges. President Nayib Bukele confirmed on Friday that the Trump administration requested Abrego Garcia's return to face these criminal charges. Abrego Garcia, a 29-year-old Salvadoran with a US citizen wife and child in Maryland, was flown back from El Salvador and immediately taken into custody. Attorney General Pam Bondi said he faces charges of trafficking undocumented migrants into the country. Abrego Garcia appeared in federal court in Nashville later that day, and his arraignment is set for June the 13th. He will reportedly remain in federal custody until then. The Trump administration claims Abrego Garcia is a member of the MS-13 gang, which is an allegation his lawyers deny. If convicted, he will be deported to El Salvador after serving his sentence. Staying with US immigration, tense confrontations unfolded in downtown Los Angeles as police in riot gear clashed with protesters following a series of federal immigration raids across the city. Footage from the area showed Los Angeles Police Department officers armed with batons and tear gas launchers lined up across the city streets, facing off with demonstrators after authorities ordered crowds to disperse. Early in the standoff, some protesters reportedly threw chunks of concrete at officers. Police responded with tear gas, pepper spray and flashbang grenades. LAPD spokesperson Drake Madison confirmed that an unlawful assembly had been declared by the police, meaning that anyone who failed to leave the area could be detained. According to reports, ICE agents raided multiple locations across the city, including a Home Depot in the Westlake district, an apparel store in the Fashion district and a warehouse in South LA. Local media also reported that dozens of people were taken into custody. Staying in North America, Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein has admitted to acting immorally but denies any criminal wrongdoing as a jury looks in his high-profile sex crimes retrial. Weinstein faces serious charges including 2 counts of criminal sexual acts and 1 count of rape stemming from allegations by 3 women who accused him of assaults in 2006 and 2013. The accusations against Weinstein include sexual assault on former assistant Miriam Haley, former model Kaya Sokola, and aspiring actress Jessica Mann. During the trial, prosecutors described Weinstein as a powerful figure who abused his influence to prey on women. While his defence argued the encounters were consensual despite his 23-year prison sentence from an earlier conviction being overturned, Weinstein remains jailed for separate offences as this retrial proceeds. The jury is continuing to weigh the evidence amid tensions, with a mistrial motion denied after a juror complained of unfair treatment within the panel. Deliberations will resume on Monday as the court awaits a verdict on Weinstein's fate. From one criminal trial to another, a former girlfriend of Sean Diddy Combs has testified in court about disturbing encounters at luxury hotels. Testifying under the name Jane, she said she felt pressured to engage in sexual acts with male escorts while Diddy watched, even after telling him it made her feel uncomfortable. She claimed a network of his employees helped organise what were called hotel nights, also known as freak-offs, which involved drugs, escorts and often left her injured. In one case, she testified that she booked a male escort's flight to New York and then left several $1,000s for him at a hotel front desk, all arranged for Diddy to watch. In another, she said she carried a package of ecstasy from Los Angeles to Miami at the request of his chief of staff, who's now been named a co-conspirator. The music mogul is charged with sex trafficking, racketeering and transportation for prostitution. He's pleaded not guilty to all charges. Prosecutors now aim to prove he ran a criminal enterprise. The trial is in its 5th week. Heading to sport now, and Novak Djokovic is leaving his French Open future in doubt after a straight sets defeat to world number 1 Jannik Sinner in the semi-finals at Roland Garros. The 24-time Grand Slam champion missed 3 set points in the third. In a sombre press conference, the 38-year-old hinted it could be his final match at Roland Garros, saying, "I don't know what tomorrow brings." Let's have a listen to one of the greatest of all time in tennis.
I mean, this could have been the last match ever I played here, so I don't know. That's why it was a bit more emotional in the end. But if this was the farewell match of the Roland Garros for me in my career, it was a wonderful one in terms of the atmosphere and what I got from the crowd. I said it could have been my last match. I didn't say it was. So I don't know right now. 12 months at this point in my career is quite a long time. Do I wish to play more? Yes, I do. But you know, will I be able to play in 12 months' time here again? I don't know. So yeah, I mean, that's all I can say for the moment.
Djokovic, who last won the French Open in 2023, admitted he felt more emotional given the possibility of a farewell. But fans won't have to say goodbye just yet. He confirmed he plans to play Wimbledon later this month and the US Open in August, with his eyes still set on a record 25th major title. For now, Djokovic remains tied with Margaret Court on 24 Grand Slams. Heading back to North America, 5 members of the far-right Proud Boys have filed a $100 million lawsuit against the US government. They claim they were unfairly arrested and prosecuted for their roles in the January 6th Capitol riots. The men, including former leader Enrique Tarrio, says their constitutional rights were violated. The lawsuit says they were jailed for years, some in solitary, and that agents planted fake evidence. They insist they did not obstruct proceedings or plan violence, despite being convicted of seditious conspiracy. All 5 were freed earlier this year after President Donald Trump issued a sweeping round of pardons to rioters. Tarrio called the case a fight to bring back law and order. Meanwhile, a former Washington police lieutenant has been jailed for leaking confidential information to Tarrio. Shane Lamond was convicted of obstruction and lying about his contacts with the group's leadership. Tarrio attended the hearing and urged President Trump to pardon Lamond as well. Moving on, the United Kingdom and India are ready to deepen their comprehensive strategic partnership as Foreign Secretary David Lammy begins a key visit to New Delhi. During meetings with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other senior officials, discussions will centre on strengthening economic, migration and security cooperation. The visit builds on the recently agreed free trade deal between the two countries, a landmark agreement projected to boost bilateral trade by over $25 billion annually, while also supporting job creation and investment flows on both sides. The Foreign Secretary is also expected to engage with Indian business leaders to encourage further investment into the UK and address regional security challenges following recent tensions. The visit underscores a shared commitment to advancing a modern, mutually beneficial partnership in a changing global landscape. Well, that's all we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more of the latest breaking news from across the world.